What happened yesterday, I got a GoPro. If for some reason I'm talking and I thought I was pointing it like this, was in fact I was pointing it at my chin, and you cannot see anything. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, a machine like this, you definitely want to have something on the frame, you know, not just tracks. Even though, like, I asked Dave who loaded me, I said, you know, I said on a machine like this, this old, I usually don't like using the tracks, you know, like people use the lip because it can break. But of course on this one they're pretty thick. But and he says this machine is 2 years old. I said 2 years old? Holy moly, you know. So they're really working this thing hard, you know. But anyway, so yeah, of course these big machines, they always have eyes in the frame, in the front and in the back. And so I did like this, cross chain the front and the same in the back, and then I just used my Sergey's method, you know, not just this lip right here, but that lip. And I know lots of guys do this, but I just don't like chaining. Like some guy would put a chain in here and then drag it here and just grab it on the trailer with no deering. I don't like doing that because it damages your trailer. It's my trailer, the only one I have, so I prefer to use deerings. I think that's a good practice. And so normally I do like 2 on the sides, right? If it was let's say Cat 330 or 336, but this one almost 100,000 pounds, so I knew I needed 5 pairs of chains or 10 chains. So I have 2 in the front, 2 in the back, 2 on the sides, like in usual spots. But then I had to add this, and you know, sometimes you gotta compromise depending where your D-rings are, right? And so here, and by the way, I do have outrigger boards. Some guys would probably, you know, not exactly 20/20 vision, were arguing if I have outrigger boards. You cannot load a machine like this, 12-2 wide, with no outrigger boards. You need either a wide trailer or you need outrigger boards, because it just very little track sits on the trailer itself. And of course I have oak, like hardwood. But anyway, so there's one D-ring here, right? And I wanted to tie down these. Like, how do you tie down? Like over here I have a light over here. And Dave says, why don't you use that one and just pull it, you know, at an angle, so this will, you know, help to prevent the machine from moving when you're driving. And I said, Dave. And so we went into a lecture about chains that have to cancel each other out. Like if you have one chain like that at an angle, you have to get another chain somewhere at an angle, you know. And I don't see where I can do that. Like that would be too steep, you know. But anyway, these are pretty strong, right? Those rollers, the body behind them. And so I just did like this, put it to the D-ring over there, and so we're good. So that gave me one more pair, one chain on each side, right? So I got 3 on the side, 3 over there, so that's 3 pairs, and then 2 and 2. That's enough. Yeah, we have the same here, except this angle is a bit shorter, but there's nothing I can do. I have D-rings in there, right? But actually that's good, because the shorter the chain, the stronger it is. So usually you want to have all your chains as short as possible, as close to the trailer as possible. And over here, originally I just put this 3/8 shaky chain, and this boom of course weighs quite a ton, and we put this timber in here, and when I stopped to check, I noticed that the timber just moved slightly over here. So I think what happened is when I went on the road, like on a turn, and I saw there were quite a few turns where the whole trailer was sitting like this, and so this thing is so massive is that it pushed the timber slightly, driver's side. You see, because when we load it, there was no gap in here. You see that? There was no gap. So now there's a gap. So it's not the timber, I'm positive, because I don't see any traces here. Like the timber could not move because that's a lot of weight. It's just what moved is the whole thing when I was going through a turn. And so I added this. I tied down this to a strap just in case, and then I added these two chains in here. Well, actually it's one chain, and I put some rubber in there because, yeah, this, I don't like this 3/8. That's my only chain, but it's kind of like an awkward, very long, you needed a very long chain, and that one would not be enough because this one is 20 foot long, and this one is 10. But this saves the day once again. I really love these binders where you can hook up directly to a hook, you know, because if I was using the regular binder, right, I would have to hook up this to the trailer and loop it, and of course then you need, you know, at least 2.5 feet more of a chain. And so these really allow you to use shorter chains where in fact normally you would need a bigger one. And one tip is that when you have a surface like this where you know that it's very hard for chain to slide, you know, like I know, even I put that rubber in there not so much to protect the machine, but because that thing is super sharp and it can damage the chain, you know. But because there's a lot of friction in there, so the chain, when you tighten it, it's not gonna tighten on the other side, you know. And so what I do in a situation like this is add another binder. So in fact, this one chain acts as two short chains, you know. And of course I could have used a shorter chain and just looped it over there, but then you have to deal with two chains. So basically 2 short chains are better in this situation, or one with 2 binders. That's just a tip, you know. But I think that's it. That's all I got. We'll try to show you some driving. Oh, let me show you what we did with the exhaust. Because they told me it's gonna be 12 feet tall, right? And then I climb in here and I see that these rails are actually taller than the boom because there's no stick, right? And I go, wait a second, I probably can be legal height, right? And the only thing that was messing up my plans was the massive exhaust body in here. And so we took it off. I undid myself 4 bolts, and then I gave up on these tubes. They were frozen, and so I called Dave, and he brought some power tools, and then we taped the actual exhaust, and we put this fancy bucket over with some. You can never have enough bungee cords. Always a great thing to have in on a heavy haul rig. And this thing has so it just has 2 joysticks. I mean, 2 joysticks, and then those levers for the tracks, and of course you can use the pedals, which I keep saying for a normal human being is it's not as precise when loading with such, you know, tight clearances. And on this machine, if you have a load 490, that's where, maybe it's all Komatsu's, I don't know, but that's where the batteries are. And actually Dave yesterday had to come over here to the pilot to change 2 batteries. So basically I only did 45 miles yesterday because there's no reason for me to rush since I don't have my PA permit yet. And so he came over here in his car and he replaced 2 batteries because they found those, they saw some error codes when loading, and they found that those error codes might have something to do with discharged batteries. And by the way, this thing runs on 24 volts, so I saw the batteries, they're like the size of a small baby. Massive. It's a very cool machine. Oh, and by the way, a couple of words I was asking them, they had all these buckets in there, you know, like I never saw a bucket like that was like, I don't know, like this wide, just like this, but this tall, you know, this big, and it had super big sharp teeth. And I said, you guys are wasting your money. I think it would be cheaper to buy a regular bucket, you know. And Dave says, oh, by the way, you see that dipper or that stick with the bucket? He says, that's what came up. That's what this machine came up with. He says, we rarely use it. And I don't know if you saw it in the video, but they had a whole bunch of super big sticks and booms. And so I was just curious. I said, so what do you do with these, you know, super long sticks, and why do you need buckets like that, like 2 feet wide, but, you know, 20 feet tall? And he explained to me what they do is they go into a contamination site, you know. So let's say somebody spilled some oil, or Captain Sergey spilled some diesel in here. So what these guys do is they bring this excavator, and let's say there's some spilled diesel near those pumps, and they start digging a 30, 40, 50 foot deep trench around this thing, you know, and that's why they need those narrow buckets. And so this thing has to reach very far, like, you know, up to 60 feet into the ground. And once they dig that trench around, they fill it with concrete, and so they create a barrier so that the bad stuff, the diesel, oil, whatever, it cannot spread, you know. And so of course then Captain Siri gets a slap on the wrist. But I mean, that's what they do. They deal with contaminated areas. And on the machine it says company name, soil and groundwater problems solved. So that's what they do. That's why they need such long booms, big machines. They need lots of power, and super tiny buckets.